skimming thing. I'll tell you what, the hour and a half has just gone by so quickly. I'm going to stay out of your way and just let you fill our brains up with stuff that most people are really not aware of. The gerrymandering, there's a term I haven't heard in a long time. Election fraud, we've all heard that one, but skimming is not a term that comes up very often. We got him? Where's the doctor?
Hello?
There he is. There he is.
Okay.
Okay, gotcha.
I'm back.
All right. Yeah, skimming, that doesn't come up very often. I haven't heard gerrymandering in a long time. That's just rearranging the boundaries and tilting the field in your favor. But skimming, like points shaving, how widespread is this? And how can this be quantified, or has it been?
It hasn't been quantified because it can't be. The people who design how to manipulate the vote are very smart. And so here's how it works. If you look at every poll that's presented, whether it's Pew or Reuters or whoever, they will always tell you, and they'll always make sure that you hear, here is the margin of error. Margin of error. This is key. The margin of error is a place where if you go there, it's kind of like a black hole. Anything can happen inside a margin of error, and it's not detectable because you have defined it as margin of error. Anything can happen there. So if you were to have a poll that had what they say is a 3% margin of error, it's actually not. It's plus or minus 3. So the actual margin of error is 6%. If they said it's 4%, it's really 8%. This is a huge margin of error from a statistical standpoint. I could never get away with those kinds of margins of error running a clinical trial.
No.
I can't have, I have 8% of my people are dying, but I can't detect it.
Oh, man.
I don't have a big enough sample size.
Yeah, when you put it that way, it becomes a little more severe, doesn't it?
Yes. So here's what skimming is. Skimming is where you take pre-election polls and you say, oh, they're very expensive and they're hard to do and time-consuming and all the rest. So we're only able to poll 1,500 people this week. And the way that they're done, of course, is they have lists. They pretty much know who's on those lists, and they call those lists, and they get the answers that they're probably going after. So you can ask a question to get whatever answer you want. You can pick a name on a list to get whatever answer you want. So is there manipulation? Sure. Who does it? Both sides, all sides, Republicans, Democrats, independents. Anybody that feels that they can get away with it will do it. I mean, why not? Why not? Because we live in a morally bankrupt society. So build your polls with this gaping wound of this black hole called margin of error. Huge. You could drive a semi-truck through most polls with these massive margin of error. But going back to my analogy, if you ask a few friends sitting around a restaurant what kind of fish they like, or you ask the entire Los Angeles stadium what kind of fish they like, you're going to get very different answer. And one is going to have a very large margin of error. If you try to ask just friends sitting around the table and apply it to everyone in America, that's not going to be very accurate. If you asked 100,000 people, you're going to get a much more accurate answer. If you ask 20 million people, you're going to have a really accurate answer.
Oh, yeah.
Your margin of error goes almost to zero. Not zero, but 0.02%, or some very, very small number. And if you have a really big margin of error, and then you manipulate the vote, however you want to do it, dead people voting, illegals voting, felons voting, rigging machines, all of that is done. It's done simultaneously and done in different polling places and different precincts in different ways. But the objective isn't to have a landslide. The objective is to make the election close. Elections aren't stolen by landslides. They're stolen by a nose.
Yeah.
And if you can get a vote that's very, very small, very, very close in terms of the difference between the two leading candidates, and shoehorn that in to that black hole, that margin of error, so that, say your candidate won by 4%, but the margin of error was 6%, where do you look? Where do you go hunting for the dead people that voted? How do you find them? You don't have a place to start. There's 180,000 precincts in the United States. Where do you begin? You can't. So not only does skimming prevent detection, it also is impossible to prove in a court of law.
Oh, man.
That's why you just don't see elections overturned anymore, because skimming has become more than an art. It's a science, and science of making elections close. When you think about the last few elections we've had, I mean, hell, in Florida, it came down to a bunch of, hanging chads, for God's sake.
Yeah, seriously.
We're talking about, hundreds of votes when 120 million votes were cast. I mean, you talk about close. I mean, that's close.
Yeah.
But all of our elections have been close like this. And so this is how skimming works. And in order to defeat skimming, you can't stop it. You can't stop the machines from being rigged and programmed, and party hacks going out and digging through who died this year and who's still on the rolls. And I mean, that's basic corruption 101. And people that are inclined to do that, they're going to do it unless you can catch them, and catch them every time. And the way you catch them is that if every person listening to us tonight, if they were to download this app and vote every week, and their friends voted every week, and everybody from every political stripe, whether you're a Hillary supporter or a Klein supporter or a Trump supporter, PollMole doesn't care. It's completely agnostic. It wants everyone to vote. It wants to count everyone's vote. It wants to reflect everyone's ideas and opinions equally. There's no agenda here, none. And so if you have a poll where 20 million people voice their opinion, and you statistically look at that, and you have a margin of error that's just a gnat's eyelash, how do you engineer the vote then? It changes the entire – there are enough people who walk into the polls that change their minds sitting there staring at that ballot box to alter the vote in any way, and much, much greater than this margin of error. So those are the people that they can't control. And if they can't control it, they're going to get discovered. Their manipulation and their fraud and their crime is going to be detected if you have PollMole operating at its optimal level of tens of millions of people participating. This prevents election fraud. This prevents the theft from all parties, from any individual, whether it's a local sheriff or whether it's a congressman, senator, president. It doesn't matter. PollMole is asking everyone to participate. So statistically, you're going to have people from every precinct and every county and every state across the country. And we're going to be getting a little slice of information from all of them, which is much more accurate than any. I mean, this sets a brand new standard of being able to identify what people think.